I once believed I was quietly lighting the way for 3 lost futures, a modest act of charity entrusted to me by my mother-in-law. As a marketing director in my late 30s with a comfortable income and no children of my own, I embraced the idea of supporting college funds for 3 teenagers, handpicked, as I was told, by a distant charitable process. Each month, without fanfare, I wired my contribution by the second week and then let the transaction fade into routine. But one crisp afternoon, the ordinary cadence of our lives was shattered by a knock on our door, a knock that would soon unravel decades of hidden family secrets. When I opened the door, I was met not by an envelope of quiet gratitude, but by 3 nervous young faces standing in the doorway. Their eyes shone with a curious blend of hope and hesitancy as they called for Uncle Jack, the familiar nickname whispered in my husband's circles. I froze, confusion knotting my stomach. Who were these unexpected visitors? Their whispered answers and halting explanations eventually revealed an astonishing truth. These were not random charity cases but my husband's long-forgotten nephews, born of an estranged sister whose very existence had been shrouded in mystery. In that heartbeat, the life I thought I knew began to crumble. I ushered the boys inside, my mind racing as I peppered them with questions about their parents and their lives, trying desperately to untangle the web of secrecy. One by one, their ages, 16, 14, and 13, fell into place, and I pieced together the revelation. They were the offspring of my husband's estranged older sister, a woman whose past had been meticulously erased from our conversations. Their visit was not a random act, it was a heartfelt pilgrimage. Their mother, desperate to express gratitude, had sent them to find the man they lovingly called Uncle Jack. Yet, as they spoke, I realized that in all the years of our marriage, not once had my husband mentioned a sister, nor had I seen a scrap of her presence in our home. The realization hit me hard. Every dollar I'd sent was not for a faceless charity but a secret obligation, and a secret that had been kept for far too long. That evening, as twilight deepened into an uneasy night, my husband returned from a pleasant outing with friends, his step light and his smile unburdened by the storm raging inside our home. Without a moment's hesitation, I confronted him, my words laced with disbelief and hurt. "Why have you hidden your own flesh and blood from me? Why did I never learn of this sister of yours or the college funds I've been funding?" His reply was a cold shrug and an offer to refund the money, a small gesture that did nothing to mend the larger wound of betrayal. I wasn't enraged by the expense, I was shattered by the deception. Our argument grew, our voices echoing in a cacophony of raw emotion, until, after what felt like an eternity, he stormed out, coat in hand. In a desperate bid to capture his attention, and perhaps his remorse, I locked the door behind him, listening to the futile sound of his repeated attempts to unlock it before his car finally pulled away into the night. In that silence, I was left wondering, had our home become a repository for secrets too heavy to bear? Later, trembling and alone, I called my own mother, unloading every bitter detail in a torrent of words. Her gentle yet probing questions hinted at a dark family past, something so painful that it had driven my husband into silence for years. "There must be a reason," she murmured, urging me to consider that perhaps his estranged sister had suffered unspeakable hardships. Even as her words offered a tentative salve, they also deepened my unease. How could a secret of such magnitude be maintained for nearly 7 years? And for what price had our mutual trust been sacrificed? Update 1. The following day, the shock of that encounter still reverberated through our home. Mere hours after our explosive argument, my husband returned, not with the tenderness I hoped for, but with the same cool detachment that had driven him away. I had expected at least a plea for forgiveness or a shared tear over the unraveling of our marital fabric, but instead he said nothing as he packed a few clothes into a duffel bag and, without a proper goodbye, left once more. I stood by the locked door, heart pounding, as his car idled briefly in our driveway and then disappeared into the night. Each metallic clink of the lock resonated with finality. That silence, punctuated only by the distant hum of the engine, left me questioning whether I was simply a pawn in a game of family secrets, or if my own pain was now secondary to a burden I never asked to carry. I reached out to my mother-in-law in desperation, seeking clarity or comfort, only to find that my calls went unanswered and my texts ignored. The realization set in, I had been manipulated into funding a hidden agenda, a covert family obligation masked as random charity. The betrayal was profound, and as anger surged within me, I toyed with the idea of reclaiming my money, though I hesitated, knowing that the funds were meant to secure a future for those children. And yet, how could I forgive a man who had walled off a part of his past from me so completely? In that dark moment, I wondered if I should walk away from the life we had built together. Update 2. After what felt like an eternity of silence and solitude, the tension finally gave way to a fragile conversation when my husband returned later that evening. We sat on the threadbare couch in our dim living room, the only light coming from a flickering lamp that cast elongated shadows on the walls. I mustered the courage to apologize for my earlier outburst, an act born of hurt and confusion rather than regret, and he, in turn, offered a muted apology for his part in the charade. It was then that he began to unravel the tapestry of a long-hidden past. He spoke of his estranged sister, Jenny, as he called her, a name that had been carefully expunged from my understanding of his family history. Jenny, he revealed, had been just 18 when she rebelled against the household that punished her with cruelty. Her defiance had been sparked by a relationship with a 25-year-old man, a notorious stoner whose vices and reckless ways only deepened the discord at home. My husband's tone was laced with sorrow as he recounted how their parents had resorted to draconian measures, starving her on days when she returned home reeking of alcohol and cannabis, yelling until her spirit nearly broke, to force her into submission. The oppressive weight of these recollections was palpable, and I felt a mingled sense of pity and outrage. Jenny had eventually run away, and though her whereabouts were never truly lost to us, she became a ghost in our family narrative, a story so painful that her very existence was erased from our daily lives. Then came the twist that shook me further. After years of silence, tragedy had struck Jenny's own life. Her husband, a man who had once reformed to provide for his family, had died suddenly of a heart attack. Grieving and alone, Jenny reached out to our family once more. My mother-in-law, whose heart had softened with age, welcomed her back into the fold. But not without insisting on secrecy. To keep the reunion under wraps, my husband's mother had cleverly disguised the truth, presenting Jenny's 3 children as beneficiaries of a noble charity rather than as the progeny of our long-lost kin. And so, every month, my funds had been funneled into a covert lifeline for these children who, until that very moment, I had believed were mere strangers in need. As the story unfolded, I found myself drowning in conflicting emotions. I could see, through his measured words, the unbearable burden of carrying such family scars, a burden that had driven him to protect me from a truth he feared would shatter my perception of him. Yet, the lies felt like shards of broken glass beneath my skin, each one a reminder of the trust that had been so carelessly dismantled. How could I reconcile the man I thought I knew with the hidden depths of a past that had been kept secret for nearly a decade? Update 3. In the days that followed, an uneasy calm settled over our home. For 3 long days, my husband maintained a careful distance, as though each step was measured on fragile eggshells. The air between us was thick with unsaid apologies and tentative glances that held more questions than answers. When he once timidly suggested that I meet Jenny face to face, I could only shake my head, still reeling from the shock of the revelations. The idea of confronting the woman who had haunted our family's unspoken history was both terrifying and overwhelming. During this period of isolation, my mother-in-law sent a heartfelt text apologizing for her role in the deception and even offered to return the money I had been sending. I refused her offer, insisting that if the funds could ease the future of these children, then they were worth the price of my shattered trust. Yet, every unanswered call and every missed text from her deepened the sense that the entire family had conspired to keep me in the dark. Was it possible that I was now the outsider in a family built on carefully curated secrets? The bitterness of the thought gnawed at me, and I could only wonder if space and time could eventually heal these festering wounds. Update 4. 2 months later, the storm began to show signs of subsiding, replaced by the slow, deliberate work of healing. My husband and I, bruised yet not broken, decided to seek the help of a marriage counselor, a decision that felt both humbling and hopeful. In those sessions, we explored the dark recesses of our shared past, confronting not only the lies that had driven us apart but also the vulnerabilities that had long been concealed behind polite smiles and gentle assurances. It was a painful process, akin to unearthing long-buried roots, but with every session, we inched closer to a semblance of truth. In a bittersweet twist, I finally met Jenny in person about 5 weeks ago. Our first encounter was awkward, a fragile collision of trepidation and cautious curiosity. I remember the setting vividly, a modest living room filled with soft light and an air of tentative reconciliation. Jenny's eyes, at once sorrowful and defiant, held a quiet apology as she explained the convoluted reasons behind her estrangement. Her children, who had once been strangers to me, smiled shyly, their presence a silent testament to resilience in the face of family turmoil. Over time, these once unfamiliar faces have begun to feel like kin, and despite the initial awkwardness, a gentle camaraderie has taken root. Together, we have all resolved to be more open, to meet, talk, and share our lives at least every other week. Could this renewed closeness be the first real step toward mending a fractured family? Update 5. Now, nearly 2 years since that fateful day when secrets spilled through our door, I return to reflect on the journey, a journey that has been as tumultuous as it has been transformative. Today, as I sit quietly with a cup of tea in the early morning light, I marvel at how the raw pain of betrayal has softened into something resembling peace. Jenny, once a shadowy figure in our family history, has grown into the sister I never knew I needed. We share laughter, long conversations about life's unpredictability, and a genuine affection that has slowly but surely mended the torn seams of our relationship. Her eldest child is now preparing to begin college in the fall, a milestone that tugs at my heartstrings and reminds me how far we've all come. My husband and I have emerged from those dark days stronger, our bond tempered by the difficult truths we had to face. The marriage counseling sessions, though arduous, have carved out a new space for honesty and understanding between us. While the scars of past deceit may never completely vanish, we now navigate our future with a commitment to transparency and mutual support. In those quiet moments when the memories of betrayal threaten to resurface, I remind myself that the painful unveiling of secrets, however brutal, was the catalyst for a deeper, more authentic connection. As I close this chapter of our story, I can't help but feel a cautious optimism for what lies ahead. The journey has been fraught with unexpected turns, a knock at the door, a locked exit, and long nights spent wrestling with guilt and anger, but it has also led to new beginnings and a redefined sense of family. In the end, isn't it remarkable how the very act of giving, intended as a charitable deed, can uncover hidden truths that, once confronted, pave the way for genuine healing and understanding? Epilogue. I now look back on those days with a bittersweet clarity. The seeds of doubt and betrayal eventually gave way to a garden of fragile trust and renewal. While I will always carry the weight of that secret and the pain it inflicted, I have also learned that confronting the darkness is the only way to let in the light. And so, with each new day, I ask myself, can the scars of our past truly become the stepping stones toward a more honest, compassionate future? In sharing this journey, I offer a quiet hope to anyone whose heart has been bruised by hidden truths. May we all find the courage to confront the shadows and, in doing so, create a life that is as real and as beautiful as the light that follows.